kind of like what they did, really similar to what they did at Cameron Indoor Stadium in the regular season loss to Duke, which they snapped from the jaws of victory. But this one, 72-64, they best the Baylor Bears. P.J. Hall fouling out with 36 seconds left, David. The Tigers, though, make their free throws and get some stops. They did not do that over the majority of the final 4 minutes of this game. It was 61-46 Clemson with 6:44 left to go in the second half. And with 59 seconds left, it was 66-63. Man, if it wasn't for Chase Hunter truly balling out for Brad Brownell, the Tigers would be back on their way to campus right now singing the blues about what coulda, shoulda been. But instead, they now advance on to the Sweet 16.
Well, remember, on the football side, where Clemson is more famous, that Dabo Swinney guy made everybody retire the phrase Clemsoning, because there had been a stretch of more than a decade where Clemsoning meant losing a game that you were supposed to win on the gridiron. So maybe Brad Brownell is onto something here on the basketball side, because I have seen the Tigers give away the games as you described, but they certainly gutted it out in the end against a really talented Baylor team. Fun fact, and this is just a tip of the cap to Brad Brownell, one thing I mentioned earlier, but this is only Clemson's 5th trip to the Sweet 16. I mean, some of these other schools have been there a lot. In the history of Clemson basketball, this is trip number 5 to the Sweet 16. And Brad Brownell, a guy who sometimes does not get a lot of respect from significant chunks of the Tigers' own fan base, is now responsible for 2 of those 5 trips to the regional semifinals. The Tigers also went to the Sweet 16 in 2018 under Brownell, and they did it without an All-American player, without a future NBA lottery pick, without a boatload of prep All-Americans. The guy has a lot of respect, Brad Brownell, around the ACC, I know, for his coaching ability. It is just not easy to get a lot of prep stars to Clemson, South Carolina, to play at a so-called football school for a basketball team that has been in the ACC for 71 years now, but has still never won a single ACC championship. Under those circumstances, I'd argue that Brad Brownell deserves a lot more credit than complaints for what he has accomplished during his 14 seasons with the Tigers, when he's often been going up against teams with a lot more tradition, a lot more high school talent, especially before we got to this new world where name, image, likeness is in play, and you can tap into immediately eligible transfers. For example, the way 4-year Joe Girard from Syracuse jumped to that other shade of orange and now plays for these Clemson Tigers. Let's also point out, and you implied this, that UNC was supposed to beat Michigan State, a number 9 seed. Duke was supposed to beat James Madison, a very impressive team, but also a 12 seed. NC State was actually supposed to beat Oakland. I mean, the Pac is a lower seed, but Oakland's a 14 seed. Clemson was not supposed to beat Baylor, a number 3 seed coached by Scott Drew, who's been there for more than 20 years, is the school's all-time leader in victories, has a national championship under his belt, and sometimes recruits at a level that's a little bit closer to the Duke and Carolina of the ACC genre than what Clemson has been historically on the hard court. The most surprising aspect of the Tigers' win over Baylor to me is not that they won the game. It was easy to forget because the Tigers finished only tied for 5th in the ACC standings, and they lost 3 of their last 4 games prior to the start of the NCAA tournament.